Hello, everyone. Welcome to another moment with Merry Minds with Mary. I am Mary, owner and founder of Merry Minds with Mary. Today, we're talking about a story that pretty much everyone knows. It is the story of Joseph of Egypt. It is an important story in biblical history. It helps us get Israelites into Egypt. It helps us understand why they became slaves in Egypt. But there's so much more to it. When you look at the story of Joseph, you can see so many things that we still deal with today. Raise your hand if your family has absolutely no drama. Everyone always gets along. It's one big happy family at all times. No? No hands? Okay. Well, same with Joseph. His father was a polygamist. He had 2 wives and several concubines. He had 12 sons. He had daughters too. At least one, Diana. He played favorites with his wives. We all know Rachel was loved, and Leah, well, she was the first wife, but not the wife he actually wanted, and it's a story. He also played favorites with his kids. He had a golden child, and that golden child was Joseph, the first son of Rachel, his beloved wife. Joseph got away with a lot as a kid. He was the snitch who would go tell dad what the brothers were doing. Yeah, that's going to need some popularity contests, right? Everyone loves the household snitch. He got the beautiful coat of many colors. The other brothers were told, yeah, nothing's wrong with your coats, just wear those. What's the problem? Joseph had dreams where the brothers and his stepmom and his dad would all bow before him. And come on, Joseph, knock it off. And that's the most he got when you know good and well, had Reuben tried that, he'd have been grounded for probably the next 20 years. Joseph was the golden child. But Joseph also had a difficult family life as well. His brothers didn't appreciate him being the favorite. They bullied him. His mom died giving birth to his youngest brother. He was raised half orphaned with the stepmom aunt who didn't like him, didn't like his mom. You know that was a situation. And then, as a teenager, he's going out to go check up on his brothers. Dad told him to. Brothers are fed up with him. Oldest siblings, we all understand this. And here comes the dreaming little snitch to come tell us what Dad said and to take word back to Dad of, yeah, we all know. Most of us don't threaten to actually kill our siblings and then go throw them in a pit, take their coat, and then sell them into slavery. Joseph's brothers did. And that's not even the end of the story. That's the beginning in a lot of cases. It ended his childhood. It ended his time with his family. That wasn't the end of his story. He was then sold into slavery in Egypt. He was purchased by Potiphar, a high-ranking Egyptian official. And as if being a slave wasn't bad enough, he was also in a hostile work environment where sexual harassment was permitted. And you're sitting there going, wait, what? Think about it. Potiphar's wife wanted him to come to bed with her. Sexually harassed him. Come to bed with me. Come sleep with me. Potiphar doesn't have to know. Until eventually one day, she grabs his coat to force the issue. Dude leaves it and runs. You would think this would be the end of the sexual harassment. And on one level, yeah, it was. But Potiphar believed his wife and had Joseph thrown into prison. No trial. No opportunity to present witnesses in his defense. Straight to prison. Do not collect $200. Do not go to go. Go straight to prison, where he stayed for years. In prison, Joseph got put in charge of the other prisoners. This was the king's prison. These were political prisoners of the Pharaoh. In fact, when Pharaoh got annoyed with his staff, they got thrown into the same prison. We know this because one day the baker and the butler get tossed in. And Joseph goes over, welcomes them to prison, explains what their jobs are going to be in prison, and then notices one day they're looking sad. Imagine you're looking sad in prison, and now Joseph's asking you about it, right? And he goes, no, seriously, like, what's wrong? And they said, we've had these really weird dreams. We don't know what they mean. And Joseph goes, I love hearing other people's dreams. Please share. And they do. The butler tells his story, and the baker tells his. And Joseph goes, well, butler man, I got good news for you. In 3 days, you're going to go back to serving Pharaoh. Butler, I got less good news for you. In 3 days, Pharaoh is going to have you unalived, and there you go. 3 days later, Pharaoh has a birthday party for himself. And to show his benevolence, the butler is brought out and returns to service. To show crime doesn't pay, kids, the baker was unalived. Joseph had asked the butler, hey, when you're back in Pharaoh's good graces, mention him to me, please. I'm innocent. I don't belong here. I don't even belong in your country. I was sold as a slave. I'm a Hebrew. Get me out of here so I can go home. Yeah, sure. Will do, right? Don't say anything in that moment. And then what happened? The butler forgot about Joseph for years. Years passed. And then Pharaoh starts getting dreams. All of a sudden, the butler goes, oh yeah, hey, your majesty, by the way, in your personal prison where you send your personal prisoners, there's this Hebrew guy. His name is Joseph, and he can interpret dreams. You should go chat with him. Pharaoh's not going into the prison. Joseph gets told, hey, get your stuff, come with us. And they take him out of the prison. They bathe him, they dress him, and they send him to stand before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh goes, so you're my dreams guy? And he goes, well, the Lord will tell me the interpretation. Let's hear it. So Joseph did what all the wise men in Egypt couldn't do. And he explained to Pharaoh what his dreams meant. And he goes, so what you should do, Pharaoh, is get a brilliant guy who's able to plan, to organize, oversee building projects. You got to get on that, because you've got 7 years of abundance and then 7 years of famine coming. If you don't want the people to die, you got to be prepared. Pharaoh looks at Joseph and goes, well, my guy, you're my guy. You're second in command, only I'm going to be higher, and that's because I'm Pharaoh. Here's a ring, here's a robe, here's a chariot, go do what you got to do. Sophia loves hearing this story. She's a little Siamese. You coming on, or are you going to hide? She's not sure yet. So, off Joseph goes to oversee the building projects, to make sure there's storage for the abundance coming. And the abundance comes. After a while, Joseph stops trying to count how much comes in. It's too much to count. Well then, after 7 years of good, the tap gets turned off. And we go into 7 years of bad. And it gets real bad. The famine is over the whole land. It impacts the Hebrews. Yeah, the other 11 brothers are also impacted. They're now all grown up too. They've got wives and kids of their own. So they go down to Egypt where they have the food. And the brothers buy food, and Joseph is like, yeah, I'm going to check this situation out, see if they've learned their lesson. Ooh, they actually seem to be feeling bad. I'm going to test them. And he has them bring Benjamin if they want more food. And we all know the story, how he checks out his brothers, accuses them of stealing stuff, lets one of the brothers hang out in jail for a while. Taste of your own medicine type situation. Oh, and now you got to go and tell Dad I'm alive. You convinced him I was dead. Have fun. Can you imagine that situation? Hoo-hoo. Hey, Dad, here's your food. By the way, we lied to you. Joseph's alive. He's in Egypt. And he wants you to come and see him. So let's go. They all move off to Egypt. And Joseph continues to serve Pharaoh. The famine ends. This is where we hear less about Joseph. He retires from service after, we don't know. But he continues to care for his family in Egypt. And this is really cool because there will come a point. Their father passes away. And they're all freaking out, right? Because Jacob isn't here to spare them from the wrath of the guy they sold into slavery. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 15, we read, when Joseph's brothers saw their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrong things we did to him? So they sent word to Joseph saying, your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers. So you can't be mad at us. Dad said so. The sins and wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of God, of the God of your father. Yeah. See, Jacob couldn't bother to tell Joseph this when he was alive. He had to just tell the brothers to tell Joseph. Joseph heard this and he wept. In verse 18, the brothers came and threw themselves down before him. We are your slaves, they said. And then in verse 19, we hear Joseph's response to all of this. Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. In other words, when everything fell apart for the brothers with the passing of Jacob, Joseph had the opportunity to really seek vengeance. But he went, no, because none of this happened to me. It happened for me. You didn't sell me as a slave and I was an innocent victim. No, I didn't deserve it. But God had a plan. I didn't ask to be made a slave and be subjected to sexual harassment in the place I was forced to work. But it did happen for me, because every tragedy along the way got me to where I am today. It didn't happen to me. All this happened for me so that I could bless others. There came a point in Joseph's journey where he saw what happened in his life was for him. It was a gift from God. And what you are experiencing today, though it may be a trial, though it may be difficult, whether it is you are the least favorite sibling in your sibling group, whether it is your mom and dad have passed away, whether it is you are in a toxic work environment, whether it is you have been falsely accused of something, if you've been falsely imprisoned, either physically or mentally, God has a purpose for you. He is allowing things to happen in your life for your benefit and the benefit of those you will influence. Your life is for you, not to you. When you take an active role in your life, when you let God lead, everything that happens will be for His glory. Your story becomes His glory, and He is able to work in the lives of those around you through you. Those Egyptians and the people in the surrounding lands would have died had Joseph not been in Egypt. Joseph wasn't going to go to Egypt voluntarily. He had to be sent there. Who better to do it than a pack of older brothers? Joseph didn't plan to become the architect of a large savings project to store food. God needed it done. So He sent Joseph to the house of Pharaoh, knowing that Pharaoh's wife would sexually harass him for years, that he would be thrown into prison where the Pharaoh kept his prisoners. He knew all of this. It all worked together for the glory of God. Because of Joseph being in the right place at the right time, because God opened and closed doors to get him to those places, lives were saved. And we all know that the people of Israel grew up to be a mighty nation. And Genesis, this is the ending of the first book of the Bible. The whole remainder of the Bible, the other 65 books, exist because of Joseph and his story. Your story has power. Your story makes a difference in the lives of everyone around you. It has an impact on future generations. What stories are possible because you are allowing yourself to go through your story. To God be the glory. God can take you in your situation, whatever it is, and He can use it to benefit others if you allow Him to. So, when you're faced with a challenge, when you are facing something in life that is really unpleasant and you really wish it would be over, take a moment to look and see, how is this happening for you? What blessings does God have in store for you? They are there if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to act. Great things can come to pass, just like with the story of Joseph, because of you. Have a merry mind, y'all. See you next week.